Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Hope everybody has had a great weekend. Sorry I wasn't able to make a video on Friday. I was a little too busy, but we're going to be recapping on what occurred, where the market's sitting at right now, and what we could be expecting for this week. The number one important thing to remember for this next week is that there's going to be a lot of earnings being reported, both from the Magnificent Seven stocks and just a lot of corporate stocks. Big companies are going to be reporting their earnings. And with a lot of the tariff uncertainty, we'll see kind of how that continues on into the week. Both of those things can bring a lot of volatility. One good thing, though, is we have seen some decent earnings reports so far from some of the key players like Google and things like that. So we'll be breaking that all down for you. Palantir right now, on markets, closure on Friday and throughout the trading day on Friday really accelerated and kind of agreed with my prediction that once it got past that $100 level of resistance, I kind of thought it was going to take off. We're seeing that occur right now. We'll see how high it goes, where it's kind of sitting at in the overnight hours, and talk about some of the other big stocks that we've been talking about, like NVIDIA, Tesla, and talking about a very big important key earnings this week is going to be Apple, on top of the Fed that will also be receiving the April jobs report, because we know the administration currently really wants to cut rates. So hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. It really helps the algorithm. I can't thank you guys enough. Pop it up on the screen here. Palantir closes at $112, back above $100 and continuing. Palantir is doing very well. Market cap back at 264 billion, back over 250. And remember, the last time Palantir was kind of over this level was back when it hit this 125 before we saw this pullback, where Palantir does a really good job. And this is even good for the future here if we get into any type of bearish potential. It does a very good job having some resiliency and some support consolidation in the mid 80s here and even at the 90s. So Palantir finding this kind of area, not a ton of trading activity above 100 is important for Palantir. Great to see it. In terms of the market that we've had this year, Palantir has done extremely well. Palantir currently in the overnight hours on Robinhood is sitting at 112, basically not moving a ton. We currently don't see stock futures moving a ton right now. We'll be getting into that in the details why. But one important thing about Palantir is earnings is coming up. That's going to be May 5th. That's what we're seeing here post-market. So Seeking Alpha is saying right here, earnings per share guesstimates is at 13 cents with revenue correlated at 862 million. We've seen 11 earnings per share revisions in the last 90 days in the bullish direction. So great to see here. One thing that I am seeing are analysts talking about here, resetting Palantir stock forecast. What we're seeing is a little bit of a cascade. Whenever Palantir starts to accelerate, I do notice this in the media and just all the different journals that come out. Everybody starts talking about their valuation. It's all of a sudden, it's like, hey, people don't have anything negative to say about Palantir. It's like, hey, let's highlight the valuation. We know Palantir is a highly valued stock. No duh, it's a highly valued stock. And it currently is not stopping Palantir. And for people that have been criticizing Palantir since it was in the 20s, that could have been a high valuation there. And they missed out from this run from 20 all the way to 100. So you see talking about here, this UBS analyst, talking about maintaining this neutral rating, bearish price targets of 105. I mean, that's a pretty, if you saw that last year, that would be a pretty bullish price target. So you just see the narrative that's being changed here. I typically ignore all these valuation articles. Yes, that's a concern. The risk for downside potential, of course, is just higher when you have a stock that's a higher valuation. But Palantir is doing an amazing job accelerating. And I think it has a lot of benefits in this administration as we speak. And currently, Palantir is continuing to secure some top niche and top of the line contracts. What the market is doing right now, stock futures kind of sitting a little bit lower currently just because of the packed earnings that we have this week. And that's because 4 of the Magnificent 7 companies, you got Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Microsoft that are going to be releasing their quarterly reports, and other big heavyweights in corporate earnings such as Visa, Coca-Cola, Berkshire are also on the dock. One of the big key players this week is going to be Apple. And the reason why I think it's going to be Apple, in my opinion, is because of all of the tariff mumbo jumbo. A lot of people freaking out. What's the price of the iPhone going to be? But in terms of just a manufacturing supply kind of perspective from the company, it'll be interesting to see on their earnings call, how are they going to be responding to these different types of questions and the uncertainties that are out there regarding these tariffs with China. In terms of the negotiations, we do, and remember we heard that, they kind of want to work on negotiations. They don't want to keep these high tariffs. They're unsustainable was the exact word, keeping tariffs these high. In terms of getting a total rebalance, we've seen numbers like, hey, that could be 2 to 3 years. And the market did not like that. So a lot of weight is sitting on Apple, I believe, sitting at 209 right now in terms of its closure on a Friday. Back above that $200. Apple is doing pretty well considering it did hit a nice dip and reversal here at about 169. So a lot of weight is going to be put on Apple, and I believe those are coming out this next Thursday. On top of that, Amazon, just going to be looking at how their revenue, Amazon Web Services, how that's doing. Meta, how that's going to be in reaction possibly to Google. And also, let's go back to Apple here. I kind of just got this thought in my head, not just in terms of what's going to be happening with tariffs, but also AI. How are they going to be incorporating that into their future iPhones? I think that is going to be a big key player in terms of the earnings call. And you have Microsoft. Meta and Microsoft are probably closely going to be compared with Google. Since Google had a wonderful, wonderful earnings, I think the bar is going to be set decently high in terms of what the market and what analysts, investors are expecting from Meta and Microsoft. So we'll see what happens there. Looking at another stock from NVIDIA right here. Like I said, this article kind of talking about going into Google, climbed back above its benchmark. One of the big things that did not actually meet its benchmark, we know, was Tesla. We talked about Tesla decently on this channel, but Elon Musk saved it basically in the earnings call, even though it heavily missed its earnings by saying, a lot of people know about this, by saying that he's going to be taking a lot less time from Doge, putting a lot more time back into Tesla, and that was very bullish. On top of that, we've seen recent articles about and announcements about the robo-taxi service, and that the electrical vehicle maker here plans to actually roll out that robo-taxi in Austin this June. Dang. That's only in basically 1 month. It's almost May. It's crazy how fast this year is going. Beginning producing the Cybercab, a robotaxi, in 2026. Tesla has had an amazing recovery, and this shows you that the earnings report does not necessarily always do, a direct correlation in terms of trading response. It's more about what's the future narrative. Elon does a really good job summarizing and kind of focusing attention away from the earnings, saying, hey, this is what's going to be coming in the future, though. He does a really good job, and we see that reaction in the stock price right here. Tesla at 280 when it was basically just at this $200 level at 220 just a few short weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Currently, Tesla sitting at 282, basically not making a ton of moves, slightly down here in the overnight hours. And some other big key takeaways is that we're also going to be having the Federal Reserve. That's going to be getting the April jobs report and key inflation data this week. Trump has reiterated his intention and his hope for the central bank to cut interest rates. It'll be interesting to see with this April jobs report here, how is Powell going to be responding? So also looking at so used to saying chat GPT, GDP data and consumer confidence report, trade balance on the housing market. So those are the big things in terms of the earnings. I think that's going to be more of a major focus unless all of a sudden we start to see some headlines with the tariffs. If we start to see headlines with tariffs news, I think that's probably going to overtake what's happening with the earnings. Yes, these are big earnings, obviously results for the Magnificent Seven, considering 4 of the stocks are reporting their earnings. But in the short term here, we're seeing a lot of bullishness that's entering back into the market. So as long as these earnings are at least decent and we see a good anticipation for what the future holds, and we don't have a ton of tariff mumble jumble and uncertainty that comes into next week, I think we're going to continue to see bullishness throughout the week in the broader market. That is my prediction. And what we see with the markets right now, NASDAQ, S&P 500 just slightly came up on Friday. Could we continue that? Possibly. Is the bull market back in the air? Only time's going to tell. What do you guys think down in the comments? Peace out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys later, and let's kick off to a great week.